There are two videos where the critical drinker gives some insight as to what he's referring to when he says modern audience. His video, Why Modern Movies Suck, The Myth of the Modern Audience, and The Girl Who Wouldn't Back Down. In his video, Why Modern Movies Suck, he sums up the modern audience as
the politically progressive, emotionally fragile and easily offended modern audience which must be carefully catered to.
He then goes on to say that the modern audience doesn't actually exist.
Exactly that. A myth. A convenient scapegoat created by writers of these projects to deflect blame and criticism away from themselves.
According to the drinker, the modern audience is actually a myth created by Hollywood writers so that they can deflect blame and criticism onto when their movies are received poorly.
Because ultimately, the people they're really catering to are themselves. It's an excuse for them to indulge their own narcissism, to impose their own worldview, to undo the things that they don't like and replace it with stuff they personally want to see.
So the ultimate thesis of his video is that Hollywood writers are ruining modern movies by pushing their ideology and then blaming a non-existent audience for their writing decisions.
You realize how messed up that sounds, right?
Empty Mitch, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, dude. How are you?
Yeah, good. Sorry, I was watching from the start. I thought I better sit back and because who really wants to hear from me about comics and American politics? Yeah,
man. Honestly, like I appreciate an outsider perspective from someone who's got a good head on their shoulders, regardless, and you definitely do. You for anybody that's not familiar. I think me and then maybe Ryan of Nothing But Media both kind of happened upon Mitch's channel sometime last year. Like your first video, dude, like it's still kind of mind blowing that your first video right out of the gate was that critical drinker video, and it's fucking awesome.
Oh, look, hey, I appreciate that. That's it's nice to hear, but yeah, I was watching the snippets that you played at the start, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's pretty rough around the edges. So
nah,
yeah.
I mean, sure, like, dude, yeah. I mean, if I went back and looked at some of my first videos, hell, if I went back and looked at last month's videos, I'll find some rough around the edges stuff. It's just the nature of the beast, man. Like the thing is that you just gotta start doing it. You know what I mean? Anybody that considers doing it but doesn't. I thought about doing YouTube for several years before I ever actually did it. And I would just like talk myself out of it, basically, because I would have all these anxieties about, what if I this or this or this? And like the only way to just get past that stuff is just to do it, because you're going to make mistakes. It's going to be rough. You're going to look back and cringe at your older videos eventually and stuff like that. Just, you got to do it. But,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like my process through it was, I heard about the critical drinker. I watched this podcast with him and Chris Williamson, and it went for about an hour. My friend was like, "You got to watch it," and everything he was saying was just absolutely ridiculous. I'm like, how is no one calling this person out? And so I'm like, I'll start with the script, and if it stays as a script, at least I got my thoughts on the page, and then I'll film it, and then if that's as far as it goes, that's as far as it goes, and then. All right, I'll edit it, and if that's as far as it goes, so each step was, just at one step. The end goal was never to really post it on YouTube, but once I'd finished it, I'm like, all right, I've gone this far. Let's just go up. But those
it's not a complete disaster. I might as well upload it. Right?
That's right, yeah. But the anxieties there,
oh yeah,
right from the start. Everything I type, I'm like, it sounds a bit off, sounds a bit wrong, but. Yeah, it's been fun though.
The greatest mob the kingdom had ever seen gathered at the gates of the castle, demanding the young woman's head. And the king and queen, desperate to stay on their shiny throne, finally gave them what they wanted.
His view on this situation is that he's annoyed that this occurred, and he's even more so annoyed with the outcome, calling the Disney showrunners cowards for bowing down to the cult's demands. Now's a good time to show this clip of the drinker talking about the mob mentality in a positive light when he happens to agree with their demands.
But it's like they put that in the trailer, they showed that stuff, and the reaction was apocalyptic. Like, fans absolutely lambasted the game as ridiculous, and it sold terribly as a result. So that these things can happen. The backlash works in some cases.
The truth is, the drinker has created a boogeyman. The modern audience is a malleable, fluid, catch-all that he can blame in any and all situations, but most importantly, it's a boogeyman that his audience loves to hate. Each time he mentions the modern audience, he adds some reverb, he says it slowly, and he throws in this 7-year-old video of a screaming woman, which is synonymous with the triggered woke SJW millennial. And with that, he allows his viewers to put their own meaning onto it. That loser triggered lib encompasses everything the individual viewer hates. And without having to say it, the drinker has made the perfect point that just so happens to align exactly with that viewer's existing ideology. Modern audiences ruined my movies means anything the viewer wants it to.
And then like discovering the world that you guys are in, I just you know, I was at the tip of the iceberg, and then the more I watch you guys, I'm like, oh, it's just a full, you know, it's a business for these guys, and they've jumped on it. They know what they're doing, and you know, calling it out is it's the right move, because you can just it's really transparent how they're sort of treating it all.
It is, and it's yeah, I mean, by the way, I apologize for that, because I am the one that reached out to you. You could have stayed innocent. Like,
That's
you could
right,
have
yeah.
completely stayed innocent in this ignorant bubble of, like, you would have never, your life probably would be better by now, right now. So I apologize.
No, it's been fun. It's good. It's sort of yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like the fact that there's that many people out there doing it, but also it's working. I mean, you can't deny that. Like, what they're doing, it's making the money, and there's people getting behind it. So the more people that are calling it out, the better, I think. So,
well, there's, you know, like I was I alluded to earlier, like especially in America, but I mean, I know we have exported it for sure. You know, there's always been in this country an element of the populace that is just so willing to throw money at bullshit and believe crazy things. You know, like believe things without evidence, and you know, I don't know. I apologize on behalf of our country for that.
No, it's all good.
From what I understand, you Australians were fine, upstanding people before you started getting some of our culture over there. No, speaking of that, Blissful Haze is apparently Aussie as well, and wants to know where you are generally, of course.
Yep. I'm down south in Melbourne area.
Right.
So
on.
it's yeah.
Doxed him.
Yeah, it's over now. All 400 subs, they're gonna come for me now.
Oh man, that's crazy. Like, I mean, let me pull up your channel here so everybody can take a look. It is just genuinely insane. That's really, like, you know, you downplay, you know, your first video and stuff, and of course I get it. I do that too, but like, I don't know if you realize how rough a lot of first videos are, man. Like, especially to come out with an essay, and to go at a channel of that stature, because he's essentially the big one, you know what I mean, as far as like numbers go, and to make so many fucking like banger points, it's just unheard of, really.
Peter Dinklage publicly criticized Snow White for reinforcing negative stereotypes of people who have dwarfism. And because of this, the drinker declares that Dinklage has no sense of humor. And now, because of Dinklage's comments, the 7 dwarves have been altered to intelligent engineers instead of comedic relief.
The dwarves that were used for comedy effect in the original have been reworked into highly efficient, intelligent, and disciplined underground engineers. Why? Because apparently we can't depict little people on screen in a way that could be even vaguely interpreted as negative.
I can't find any information on whether this is true or not, but this is coming from the critical drinker, the same man who gets upset when straight white men are depicted as buffoons.
Can't have men in sort of positions of power. We can't have like traditional strong masculine men in lead roles anymore. And if we ever get a character like that, they almost always become the butt of a joke.
Isn't it funny how the only 2 male characters in this film are either portrayed as weak and pathetic or dumb and comical? Just something to think about. And of course, all the jokes are at the expense of the male characters. The white guy is Fred, who's now the butt of every single joke. He's an idiot. He can't do anything for himself. All that stuff. And it's like a parody. Here's a crazy idea. We're going to make fun of all the male characters in our movie and just make them into bumbling moron. Because, like, apparently, in the eyes of modern Hollywood, a straight white male is not allowed to be, like, just a hero. He's not allowed to be good at anything. And he's not allowed to just do something genuinely inspiring and heroic.
It's interesting how he can understand the feeling of wanting positive representation when it comes to straight white men, but he can't afford that same sympathy to minority groups. I guess those minority groups should just accept that they are comedic relief and step aside and let the straight white men be the heroes.
But yeah, if you're not subscribed to Empty Mitch, you should be, it's just at Empty Mitch on YouTube, it's not that hard. Yeah, man, and this just goes to show that like there is a huge problem with YouTube. Like I don't know if you've looked into any of that or not, the way the algorithm functions. And
well, yeah, so I've got the two channels. Obviously this is the one that I post to, but I've got a personal account as well, with because I've been paying premium, so I've hung on to that one. But when I'm doing research for these types of videos, you watch one video in this sort of genre, and all of a sudden it takes over your entire page, and that flips me out. Like my Empty Mitch page is just full of Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, all that just sort of trash. And the stuff I've been watching on my personal account forever, it's so hard to find new creators, new stuff, but it just seems absolutely endless on the other side, on the flip side. Definitely it's obviously like a hole that people sort of find themselves in and it only takes one click.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's been shown many times now, and like there's we watched a bit me with some Patreon supporters a while back. And Morgan as well. We watched this. It's actually a documentary by Alex Winter, the guy that he was Bill from Bill and Ted. He has a documentary called The YouTube Effect, and it is, I think that's what it's called, right? Yeah, and it goes into all this, and talks about how just the way I've described it before. I did a video about it with Organized Chaos once, where like, because we'll get people showing up in our comments. I'm sure you've gotten this, where like they're like, "Oh, well, how come he's got 1 million subscribers or 2 million subscribers? And you don't have shit." It's like, I guess that shows who knows what's up or whatever. And it's like, do you actually think this is a meritocracy on this platform? Because holy shit.
Those comments always make me laugh. It's like, what are we saying here? It's just like, it's a popularity contest. Is it like, it's not really how it works.
Well, I mean, what I typically say is like, like Eric July, for example, his fans will say that shit and they'll be like, "Oh, well, he's really successful and he's got a bigger channel than you." And I'm like, yeah, but the people that he talks about all the time are bigger than him. So by your logic, like he sucks compared to them. So like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Exactly right. Yeah, and it just keeps going up and up and up. Like, yeah, when does it end?
Just honestly, the idea behind the initiative, the Phantom Initiative, was this is really the second time that I've tried it. The first time I tried this, the premise at the core of it was specifically in a political context. Shortly after I started YouTube, I started at the end of 2019, basically, and then in spring of 2020, I had started meeting a bunch of like progressive leftist YouTubers and stuff, and got into these communities. And I was like, "Look, yeah, you're a communist and you're an anarchist and you're a social democrat or whatever, but like, look, we all know that we have to like go the opposite direction from fascism, right? Like we're all in agreement there. So let's coordinate to do that, and then we can figure out the rest later." You know what I mean? That was my naive idea. And because the way that this content their content, the right wing content, has gotten everywhere, is they coordinated it. Essentially, they go on each other's channels. They, that's why you'll see them cross-platforming each other, and then you've seen so and so on this show, on this podcast, and then that dude's channel is going to get recommended to you with the other channel that you've already been watching, and then you can kind of just see an exponential effect as they do that more and more and more. And that's how the Fandom Menace came together. That's why they do that weekly show that they do, where there's like all of them are on the same show. And essentially that was what the concept was with the initiative, because it didn't really work in the political context because, I don't know, people are just too up their own butts with their politics, I think. But when it came to fandom and like just finding people that were like of the same mind of like, yeah, man, we may not always agree on everything, but like, this is not good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's, and it's really been pretty beneficial. And that's why, I try to reach out to people like you whenever I see somebody doing like, hey, this guy's, first of all, I got to let people know that you're going to come up against some resistance, because I'm not sure how aware everybody is of that. Like we just had Westside Tyler on a few weeks ago, He was coming up really fast. Like when I came across him, he had like 500 subs, something. Now he's got almost 6,000. He's almost as big as my channel now. And I just like to let people know that like you're gonna get like the better you are at this, the more effective you are, the more concerned they're gonna be, and the harder they're gonna come at you. And you should take that as like that's a good thing in a weird way. Because I've had people email me since I've been doing this asking like, how do I stop them from bombarding my channel and saying mean things in my comments? And I'm like, you don't stop them. You don't. You like if you're letting that affect you, you either need to learn to stop letting it affect you, or you might not be doing something you should do, because it's just the nature of this thing. And yeah, you kind of have to frame it in a healthy way, or you're going to it's going to fucking hit you in an unhealthy way. Anyway, I'm rambling.
Yeah. No, for sure.
But,
like, I mean, when I got your email, I did appreciate that, because it was just sort of, hey, heads up, like there might be some hate coming your way. So it was good to prepare. But it was funny that after you emailed, I got a comment saying, respect your opinion or whatever, but at least you aren't with the anti-fandom. And I'm like, oh geez. So like, you guys are like well known in those groups, and yeah, you were like your names were getting brought up in my comments like from early.
Oh, they were mentioned. So they said us. You said anti-fandom. So it was like,
oh, sorry, yeah.
They're talking about us. Gotcha.
Yeah. So like, they were bringing you guys up pretty early on, and I'm like, oh, okay, what's the go here? And
they hate us.
Yeah.
They truly do.
I think another like I wouldn't say issue, but like if you got the two sides, it seems that the critical drinker sort of viewpoint on things is it sort of leans on that extreme. It's like people watch it and they feel that emotion of like anger and hate, and they want to look out for more things to get angry about. There's sort of I don't know, it's sort of like that builds. Whereas on the other side, it's more, I guess, apathetic towards what's going on. It's like, oh yeah, that guy's an idiot, and they move on, which I feel like can make what you guys are trying to do like extra tricky, because there's sometimes less emotion behind pushing back on these guys.
Yeah, I mean it can be tricky for sure. Like, well, I mean, we have every week we do a Wednesday stream, but we have a Tuesday meeting every week, and that Tuesday meeting, it started out as like, let's plan a good show. Let's make sure we have an idea what our show tomorrow is going to be, and we know what we're going to do. And after not even a very long amount of time, we kind of got that under, it was no problem. We could kind of crank out a good stream pretty easily without a lot of discussion about it. But the reason it's still valuable and that we still do it is because there's an ethical conversation to be had about a lot of the stuff that we cover. Like, how are we going to talk about this? What is the most important thing to talk about this thing that they're saying or whatever? And then the responsible way to talk about it. Because like the last thing that you want to do, and this is why, the reason why you stood out as like, wow, first video, because they want to upset people. You know what I mean? They want people to act with an emotional fucking knee-jerk response to them. And it's like frustrating because the stuff they're saying, a lot of cases, it can very much cause a valid emotional reaction. But at the same time, you don't want that, because like they feed on that stuff because they're trolls. At the end of the day, they're just trolls. And if you know how to operate with trolls, what to do, what not to do, then you kind of have the gist already.
Yeah, because there's nothing they'd love more than a clip someone getting upset about what they've had to say.
Right.
Going back to his evidence about the modern audience, he then brings up the Ring of Power, because it includes black dwarves, women characters, and the fact that it wasn't rated highly by actual audiences. And that's it. That's what he brings forward to back his claim. You know what they say about extraordinary claims? They need extraordinary evidence. I'll take ordinary evidence. Give me any evidence. Drinker listed 4 Disney remakes with release dates that span a 7-year period, one of which people didn't like, one of which people loved, and 2 others that haven't been released yet. He's also mentioned a TV show that includes minority groups in their cast, as proof that modern writers are hiding behind the myth of a modern audience.
Oh, we didn't set out to make all these unpopular changes that ultimately ruined the product you see, but the world has changed now and we had to update it for modern audiences.
There's no connection at all. He selects a few movies from the hundreds that have been released and jumps to a conspiracy where there is a concerted effort from Hollywood to force a narrative down your throat. And even if we were to give the drinker the benefit of the doubt and say that movies and TV shows are written by woke writers and that is the reason they suck, we have to then ignore the piles and piles of TV shows and movies that have come out in this same time period that not only have a diverse cast and woke storyline that have done extremely well in the ratings, but also the piles and piles of TV shows that have straight white men as leads, which also have done really well.
And that's why I started doing it in the first place, is because I came at it from specifically the Comicsgate angle, and I was looking for people that were pushing back against it, and the ones that I found were like, a lot of times they were kind of just feeding into what they were saying and giving them, some kind of content to basically they were making themselves targets and making it, I don't know, I don't want to victim blame anybody for being targeted or anything, but like, I just had an idea that I would be able to present things in a way that wouldn't be to their advantage.
For sure. Yep.
And I, probably have done that sometimes, and then sometimes not. But as Bob of the Old Ways points out here, yes, the dark money is a factor for sure. You've got a lot of, or at least a few, anyway, libertarian billionaires, rich people in the U.S. in particular, but also, elsewhere, that they don't like taxes. They don't like taxes generally. That's just what it is. They want to make as much money as possible. They want no regulations on how they make their money or how much they have to pay in. And but what they are willing to spend money on is content, essentially. So they, that's why you see things like anytime there's some right-wing, little right-wing nobody account that goes viral for something, right? Like they say something that, what was it that recently that, I don't know if you saw that country singer guy. Right?
Yeah. 300-pound, what's the lyrics?
Something about eating
5'3" and 300 pounds. Yeah.
Yes.
I know the guy. Yeah. Yep.
That kind of guy. And like he apparently was like legitimately just some, local, somewhat talented singer guy.
Interesting that everyone happened to tweet him at the same time, though.
Right. He gets scooped up, and then suddenly he seemed to be pushed by from what I could tell, and I did a stream on this where we dove into this shit, like Blaze Media, which is the same company. Well, Glenn Beck owns the parent company of it. He started Blaze Media, and it also is what Eric July is a contributor to. And then there's like Alex Stein and like all these people that they're basically anybody that starts out kind of, they get attention and they're stirring up trouble, so to speak, in with whatever thing they're doing. They're kind of like breaking through the noise and they're pissing off the liberals or whatever. There are rich people that are looking out for that, or they have people looking out for it for them, and they're like, they just jump at it. They're like, oh, we got money, we're going to platform you, we're going to give you everything you need to push you to the top, and as long as you just keep doing what you're doing.
Yep.
And
repeating the lines.
The left just doesn't have that because, like, people don't want to spend money on that generally on the left.
Modern audiences ruined my movies means anything the viewer wants it to. And this isn't to say that the drinker can't think that modern movies suck. Of course he can. But his assertion that modern movies suck because of narcissistic Hollywood writers that are pushing a message is baseless, and it's actually a pretty obvious right-wing dog whistle.